Let's dig into one of Python's most fundamental concepts, the for loop. Specifically, we'll learn how to loop through strings, which is incredibly useful for processing text data. Make sure you have VS Code open and ready to go. We're going to create two files in this lesson, the for loop input file and the for loop word file. You can find those in your downloadable resources for this lesson. These will demonstrate two different approaches to looping through strings, one with user input and one with a fixed string. Let's create our first file. If you've created a new file, name it forloopinput.py like you see on the screen. We'll start coding our first example together here. First, let's create our main function. We'll start with getting input from the user. Type word equals input, and then inside of input, enter a word here with the colon at the end. So you're assigning this variable word to the value of input and prompting them to enter a word. So as we know, that input function displays the message, enter a word here to the user and waits for them to type something, and whatever they type gets stored in our word variable. So now for the exciting part, what we're talking about in this lesson are for loop. On the next line, type for letter in word. So this is the basic syntax of a Python for loop when working with strings. You may have seen it at different points in the course, but here's a lesson where we're just really focusing on that, and let's break it down as we're going through it. For is that keyword that starts this kind of loop. Letter is our loop variable. This is going to hold each character as we go through the string. In is another keyword that tells Python we're iterating through something. And word, that variable we already assigned, word is the string we're looping through with our for loop. We've indented again and we type print letter. Got our print, our letter in the parentheses. This will print each character one by one as Python loops through our string. Finally, let's add our main function call at the bottom. If name equals main, and on the next line indented, calling main. And let's move on to our second example. The for loop word Python file. Once you've created this is going to show how to loop through a fixed string instead of user input. It's much the same, but we're just taking a look at it as we increase our comfort level with for loops. First, define your main function. And instead of getting input from the user, this time we'll loop through a fixed string. And on the next line, type for char in Python. Always make sure you've got that colon. Notice I'm using char instead of letter for the loop variable. You can name this variable anything you want. It's just a placeholder that holds each character as we go through the string. Got your indent now and print char. And then we'll finish this off with our script entry point. There are several important concepts to understand here. First, strings in Python are iterable, meaning you can loop through them character by character. This can be incredibly powerful for text processing. Second, the loop variable, whether you call it a letter, char, or anything else, temporarily stores each character during each iteration of the loop. And third, notice how we don't need to worry about string length or indexing. Python handles all of that for us automatically. This is much cleaner than using a while loop with counters and index positions when we're trying to just iterate here. So when you'd use this in real projects, there are many different scenarios. For loops with strings are useful, for example, for counting specific characters in text, for validating input, checking if all characters are letters or numbers, for processing text files character by character, and for building text-based games or applications, and these are just a few examples. Make sure to use Git and GitHub to commit and store your work, and I'll see you in the next lesson.